Okay, the Zoom session is activated.
Is that going to be up there?
The
pictures,
Zoom is only going to be used for audio tonight.
Oh, okay.
On the web, we still see that.
Everything will be seen on the web and across Channel 21.
Okay, all right.
We are still moving forward with this technology. Not quite sure how to make it all tie in. We're time. Thank you for being patient. I know we're a bit past, well, we're at 5 o'clock according to the network. Waiting for one person and then we'll get started.
Mayor Pina, it's J.C. Harris here. I've been working for a minute or two. I didn't know how it connects.
Okay, so but you're here. Thank you.
I'm here, yeah.
I will call roll after after the flag salute. So it looks like all local participants are here. So at this time, I'll call the March 26th, 2020 regular council meeting to order, and I will lead us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As a reminder to all council members, when you're not speaking, please have your phone on mute. It'll really help to cut down extraneous noise. So council, today we're meeting under very constrained circumstances, operating under a proclamation of emergency, which was issued on March 5th, 2020 in response to the COVID-19 outbreak. On Tuesday, March 24th, Governor Inslee issued Proclamation 20-28, temporarily waiving and suspending portions of RCW 42.30 that require in-person meetings or contact. From now until further notice, council will strictly be responding to two types of issues. Routine, which you can see, the vouchers are an example of that on the agenda, and the action associated with the response to the COVID-19 health crisis. Until further notice, staff have been asked not to attend council meetings, and we are looking for ways to have them participate through video conferencing. For today, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, other than myself, the city manager, the city attorney, the city clerk, the police chief, and the fire chief, council members are participating telephonically. Council, when I call your name, please let me know that you are present. I have a microphone by the phone, but I'll do the best I can. Deputy Mayor Mahoney.
Present.
Thank you. Councilmember Martinelli.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Bangs.
Present.
Thank you. Councilmember Nutting.
Present.
Thank you. Councilmember Harris.
Present.
Thank you. Councilmember Buxton.
Here.
Thank you. Let the record show that all council members are present. As mentioned on the agenda, we are suspending in-person public comment during the council meetings until further notice. Public comment is still encouraged, but will be accepted in writing, either by email or mail. Our council meetings can be viewed live on Comcast Channel 21 or streamed live on the city's website. Are there any correspondences or have there been any written public comments received?
Yes, Mayor, we received 3. emails. First one was from Yoshiko Grace Matsui, and she wanted to urge council to remove the restriction on telephonic participation during the COVID crisis. And then she also urged you to look at Rule 7.1 to be permanently removed. Tad Doviak sent an email in, and he wanted to bring up the idea of business signage again in the downtown area. And an email from Will Husing talking about no outreach to the residents of Des Moines as to what the city is doing to support the residents. And that concludes comments and correspondence.
Thank you. And the only thing I will make note of at this time with respect to correspondence is we have been publishing what our progress has been and the things that we have been doing in various sources, but including the Waterland blog, the Destination Des Moines, or no, I'm sorry, the Des Moines Can page, and several other blogs throughout the area. We have had a conversation tonight to look at what we might be able to do with Channel 21. And Channel 21 is only available to Xfinity subscribers. But there is a possibility that we can take some of the documents and create a slide deck and put them on Channel 21. So we have part of our team working to get that done. In addition to board and committee reports, council member comments also have been suspended until further notice. So I want to start off the meeting tonight by specifically highlighting the role of the council as a whole during an emergency like we are currently living in. Individual council members acting on their own have no responsibility in an emergency for taking actions that are not coordinated with the council as a whole. With that said, we will now go to our administration report, and I turn the microphone over to Michael Mathias, our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. We have a brief PowerPoint that we want to, that we're going to put up here, and we've also sent that to the council as it was finished recently, last 20 minutes. I want to just point out a couple of things that we've been doing as a city. Toward the end of February, the presence of the coronavirus became more evident, and this was especially highlighted by events in Kirkland, Washington, at a single nursing home facility. And from that point forward, Washington became a hotspot for infection and somewhat with fatalities. So toward the end of February, the city initiated a number of actions to try and respond to the virus. And this was at the same time that the federal government was searching for what would be the appropriate guidance to provide, and the state government was doing the same thing. In the beginning of March, we started holding daily briefings, which continue to today, with all of our senior staff, with our first responders, South King Fire and Rescue, with our police department, and the senior members of those agencies. We, on March 5th, due to the severity of what was occurring, we issued an emergency proclamation declaring this a proclamation of emergency for the city. Other jurisdictions followed that action, and then that moved to the states. California put a shelter-in-place order into effect, and other jurisdictions. And for the state of Washington, that was this week, the governor established the Stay Home, Stay Healthy, which is essentially a shelter in place with restrictions on movements and activities and workplace and other aspects. We were one of the first to go to telecommuting, which we have done with our staff. All of our city facilities are literally closed, with the exception of the Senior Activity Center, where we have been providing in the neighborhood of about 60 lunches a day. And that is done by transferring the lunches to the seniors in the parking lot where they can pick those up. We've also made deliveries in Des Moines of those lunches. we are, continually monitoring all of these different actions. The telecommuting has been relatively successful. We've tried to work on the permits and planning related issues for construction. The governor just released today clarity as to what projects are can continue based on their essential nature, and other projects that can no longer continue. So we've been very active as a city trying to find ways to protect our community and protect our staff. Tomorrow we're excited, and the fire chief will be here. I'm not going to steal his incredibly important role, but we've worked jointly to establish an emergency operations center, and that will be essentially under the jurisdiction of the fire district, and that will be stood up tomorrow. So we've been moving forward. So with that as some background as to what we've done, I'd just like to talk about the roles and responsibilities of emergency management. And these are typically, everyone in the city, especially senior leadership, has a role in emergency response, as do first responders, essentially our fire and police departments and the fire district, South King Fire and Rescue. These are protocols established by the National Incident Management System, NIMS, which is the gold standard for addressing emergency management. And parallel to that is the Incident Command System that establishes responsibilities for a specific instance. What's tricky about the coronavirus is that it is not a single defined, limited, finite incident that occurred, and now we go to recovery and to try to address the impacts. This is an ongoing, spreading, expanding dynamic that the first part of it is it requires first responders to be there, and then the city has done everything in our power, and I think tomorrow absolutely formalizes that we will be moving forward to support the Emergency Operations Center. So these standards are established at the federal level, and they identify operational command and control responses. Elected bodies have specific duties in this system, and it is vital that council, acting as a whole, and we want to emphasize acting as a whole, as the mayor just did, understand these duties and perform them. Council duties are as follows. Primary duty of the council as a body, once again, not individually, but as a body, is to approve specific ordinances required for response and recovery from an incident. These would or could include a disaster declaration, evacuation orders, declaration of a state of emergency, which is what you'll be considering tonight to ratify, protective ordinances necessary to protect life and property during an emergency. The council and individual council members do not have an operational role or administrative role in day-to-day emergency response actions. And the importance of that is the prescribed administrative and operational role is specifically defined in the NIMS and ICS protocols. We do not want to vary outside of that. Second duty of the council and individual council members in this instance is to support the public information officer who at this moment will be a member of the fire district in delivering an accurate and consistent message generated by the Emergency Operations Center to our residents. This message is not an individual council member message, but consistent with the information and protocols established by the PIO. Another duty is to consider and approve ordinance related to budgetary requirements. This is a very fast-moving incident. You may be aware that the Congress of the United States has passed an over $2 trillion bailout for this situation to assist people, and one critical part of that for us is the potential to be reimbursed through the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. And in order to do that, we need to be very precise in maintaining records of time spent in pursuit of the end of this incident. Finance department, same thing. They're going to have to accurately record, which they have been doing since this began. And finally, the council is tasked with advocating with other elected bodies for resources the City of Des Moines requires for response to and recovery from this incident. And as determined by City Council with input from the emergency management team, that may involve advocating at the county, state, or national level to receive the resources we need to respond. Not all of these duties apply in every emergency, subject to the nature of the emergency. Finally, we just did a very quick summary of the amount of information that has been provided to the City Council since February 12th, 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks ago, it was being declared that the coronavirus would have little impact in the United States, and we anticipate, or the president at that point said he anticipated the number of coronavirus cases to go to zero rather quickly, okay? Now I think we're over, what, 70,000 infections in the United States and an astonishing number of fatalities. But this starting today, going Mayor Pina's statement that he put out yesterday, these are just summaries of what the information we provided is, and much of this information has been posted on our website, as the mayor referred to, or in social media. So we could just kind of scroll through this quickly. Yeah, once again, this goes on for about 4 pages, and somewhere in the neighborhood of probably 80 or 70 transmittals. Yeah, so with that, it's now what we'd like to do is hear from our first responders. And the first person that I'm great pleasure to introduce is Vic Pennington, our Fire Chief, South King Fire and Rescue. And Vic is going to bring us up to date on activities associated with the first responders and also with the Emergency Operations Center. Thank you, Vic.
All right. Thank you, Mayor, City Manager, for inviting me here today. I've got quite a list of things to go through. So I got a couple of things I want to talk about tonight. I want to talk about emergency management, and I also want to talk about what the fire district has done relative to emergency management. So on the COVID-19 event. So South King Fire and Rescue on March 9th, 2020, declared a state of emergency. And we opened up our Emergency Operations Center. Keeping our firefighters, paramedics, and private ambulance personnel healthy is a top priority so we can continue to help the communities we serve of Des Moines, Federal Way, and areas of unincorporated King County. As the outbreak of COVID-19 continues to unfold, it's important that we take steps to protect our first responders who are on the front lines treating sick people. Many fire agencies in King County currently have personnel who are quarantined and in isolation from exposure to COVID-19 while at work. South King Fire and Rescue has had 12 members quarantined at various times during this event. I'm happy to report that all are healthy and all have returned to work, and all of our firefighters have tested negative for COVID-19. South King Fire and Rescue, out of an abundance of caution to protect our employees and our citizens that we serve, have taken the following actions. We have suspended public activities, such as public education events, and we've closed our lobby spaces and general meeting rooms. We've implemented a modified work schedule and a work-at-home policy during these hours, during our normal work hours. We've implemented a self-screening process. So when our employees show up for work, they're screened. If they're symptomatic at all, if they have a temperature or they have any other symptoms, they're not to report to duty. And during their shift work, they're also screened again. And if they're found to be symptomatic, they're relieved and they go home. This is meant to assist in keeping a healthy workforce. We have to have a healthy workforce so we can provide the services to our citizens. So there are very few constants in this COVID-19 event. The dynamics change constantly. They change daily, sometimes hourly, as the science begins to unveil the layers of COVID-19. However, for the public, for you, there are some consistent practices. Now, we know that our older population and those with underlying medical conditions have proven to be vulnerable to this disease. Here's what you can do to help reduce the widespread transmission and lessen the impact on our healthcare system. Wash your hands with soap and water frequently. Sing the happy birthday song twice. That will help with the duration of time you need to wash your hands. Avoid touching your face with unwashed hands. Cover your mouth and nose with a tissue when coughing or sneezing. Stay at home if you're sick. Avoid close contact with others. Telecommute if your work allows it. Practice social distancing. Social distancing. This is really important. Let me share with you some estimates that were provided to me by King County. If we do nothing relative to social distancing, the estimate is that there will be 25,000 cases of COVID-19 in King County, and about 20% of those, or 5,000 people, will need hospital care. And quite honestly, our hospital system cannot care for that many people. It will overload it. If we practice social distancing, it's estimated that there may be 5,000 cases of confirmed COVID-19, and about 1,000 of those will need hospital care. That's a manageable number of patients. You can make a difference in your destiny. It's our destiny, resulting in better outcomes for all of us. We work on a regular basis with the State Department of Health, Seattle King County Health Department, the King County Fire Chiefs, medical program directors, local cities, and other government agencies. And we all meet several times a day. Folks, this is a big deal. This is something that in my over 4 decades that I have not experienced, as most of us have not. We've seen different things come through like SARS and H1N1 and the bird flu, and it gets to a certain point. And then it drops off. But we're still climbing, and we really don't know where that's gonna end. The latest estimates are by April 6th, we might be at a peak, but how long is that gonna last? We don't know. These are our best guess by some really, really smart people, a lot smarter than me. So we're in it together, and we'll get through it together. Now I'd like to talk to you about emergency management operations. So this is a large medical event. It's not like an earthquake. It's not something that you see. It's kind of like getting shocked by electricity. You don't know when it's going to happen. It's there. It's invisible, and yes, you walk into a electrical line and you get shocked. That's what this disease is. It really is. You don't know where it's at. So emergency management, and I'll talk to emergency management relative to the city of Des Moines. Most of my career has been at King County Fire District 26, which served the city of Des Moines for over 30 years until we merged with Federal Way and created South King Fire and Rescue. So for years, we have responded to emergencies with the city. And for years, we've wanted to have a really good emergency management plan. Sergeant Richards of the Des Moines Police Department and I worked for years to maintain a basic direction in emergency management. And it kind of ebbed and flowed as time went on. But it really wasn't truly embraced until about 2016. In 2016, there were some changes in the city. Michael Mathias became the city manager, And because of his background and his experience in emergency management became important. It became really important. It became a priority for the city. The city staff and council began participating in emergency management training with regional partners. Regional relationships and trust was built. Let me back up a little bit. In 2009, in our trying to get emergency management to the forefront, the city of Des Moines participated at the National Fire Academy with one person, and that was our former police chief, Roger Baker. But let's skip ahead to 2017. In August of 2017, about 18 city staff and electeds participated with 75 other people from cities, water districts, sewer districts, fire districts, and community volunteers, police departments. They participated in a large-scale emergency management event for a week back at the Emergency Management Institute. And that's located on the grounds of the National Fire Academy in Emmitsburg, Maryland. The city manager Matthias, found this training was so valuable, he invited Kevin Neary, one of the country's leading emergency manager instructors. Kevin was a key player in New York during 9/11. He invited him to come out to the city of Des Moines, spend some time here. He provided some training to the city council at that time. And he also reviewed the city's emergency management resources, pointing out the value of the north area of the marina for emergency management and logistics staging, as did the captain of the port from the United States Coast Guard. City manager Matthias created a new director of emergency management. And that role is currently filled by our assistant police chief, Cooey, whose experience is phenomenal. And in his prior job working for the state, Washington State Patrol, one of his jobs was the operations, the continuity of government, the continuity of operations and emergency management for the state of Washington. To have that kind of a person on your staff is pretty incredible. And now he's appointed one of our employees, Shannon Kirchberg, as the emergency preparedness manager, who I have to say is doing an incredible job right now during this COVID event. The city also, with the fire district, put together training to the public in the world of emergency management and CERT, Community Emergency Response Teams. So here we are today, in the middle of a worldwide pandemic, an unimaginable public health crisis. Again, something that none of us have experienced to this degree. To manage this event as a government agency, you might think, what do we do? So it starts before the event happens. And before the event happens, we have to ask ourselves as agencies, as government agencies, do we have a culture of emergency management? If not, why? And if not, that has to change. That changed in 2016. That change starts with training. You have to train. You just can't show up and throw the vest on and think you can manage it. It starts with building relationships and regional partnerships. It starts with the development of emergency management plans. And it starts with having the right people doing the right jobs. South King Fire and Rescue started meeting with the city of Des Moines in early March when the threat of the virus became more evident. Shortly thereafter, both the cities and South King Fire and Rescue and the other cities that the fire district serves issued proclamations of emergency. Tomorrow's a very incredible day for the city of Des Moines, especially. Tomorrow, at the fire station in Des Moines, we will open up an emergency operations center, a jointly staffed emergency operations center, and it was staffed with fire and police, because this is a fire and police emergency response. And this was a project that really wasn't scheduled to be done until late part of this year, before the big storm season. I have to tell you that the role and the city manager stepped up, and he understood what we needed to do. And he mobilized his people, the police chief, his information systems, his operations manager, and several others. It took a lot of people. And they took what was going to take the better part of a year and stood it up and ready to go in 2 weeks. That's pretty incredible. But that's because there's relationships. That's because there was training. That's because there were regional partners. That's because they developed emergency plans. And that's because they have the right people doing the right jobs at the right time. I can't say enough about the forward motion that this city has made over the years. I can't say enough about that. And the city council has had a role in that. But it took one person to lead that charge from the city. And that's the person that says we're going to do it or we're not, and that's the city manager. And there's a tremendous amount of support that he's had. And I would say to the council, being that I was there not too long ago, that it is important for you to support your city staff, to support the directions that they're going. They're going in the right directions. It's important for you to support them with policy. It's important that you reach out to your constituents, your citizens, and make sure they have the right information. Make sure that the information comes from your city staff. Make sure the information comes from reputable websites. Department of Health, Seattle King County Public Health, the Fire District's website, the city's website. That's important because I can tell you at the very beginning of this that the media did an outstanding job at creating panic. And if you think that is untrue, go to the grocery store. So folks, I will leave you with a couple of things. I want you to check on your neighbors via the telephone, and especially those that are elderly. Anyone who may need assistance with obtaining groceries, do it safely. And remember that even if you're young and healthy, you still may be a vector for this disease, and you should take appropriate precautions. Follow the governor's orders. It's not spring break. Follow the governor's orders. Because all of us working together, all of us, we can guide our destiny, resulting in better outcomes for all of us. And remember, we're all in it together. Thank you. Be safe and take care.
Thank you, Chief. I'd also like to ask Chief Thomas to say a few words. I think one of the most extraordinary things about what we're doing jointly is the quality of relationships and communication and trust that exists. And that's just been phenomenal. And that's just a blessing of the people involved in all of this, including our mayor and our council, our senior staff, the fire chief, his staff, police chief, and your staff, and Mark Cooey is part of that. And great wisdom to have brought him on board. But Chief, if you would.
Yes, thank you. And so I will give a briefing on what we're doing in the police department in this situation and with the EOC. But I want to start and just make a quick comment. I'm in my 32nd year as a police officer, and about the past 10 of those have been as a chief in a leadership role. And I just want to express to the members of our city that I never once in that entire career had as much support as a police leader that I have right now from the city manager, the mayor, the council, the relationship with the fire department. Chief Pennington and Deputy Chief Metafton have we talk on the telephone several times a day. The communication, the cooperation is so close. But Vic talked a little bit about the Emergency Operations Center, and I can tell you it came together well, and Shannon Kirschberg did an incredible job. She's really hit the ground, and she's doing a great job. But I'll be brutally honest with you, it hasn't been easy. We put together what should have taken 6 months in about 2 weeks. And sometimes when you're in an emergency situation, you need stuff done and you need it 10 minutes from now, not when people are available. And I can tell you, there's been a time or two that I've gone in and either into the city manager's office or a telephone call, and I can tell you, he moved mountains for us, for the police and fire department, to go live with what's about to go live tomorrow in the EOC. No way it could have been done without the support of the city. So I want to thank you for that, and I know the feeling is mutual with the police department. It's just, we're going to have a first-class operation to do the best job possible for our community, and it's only because of the great work and support that we've gotten from the entire team. And I don't want to leave out Dan Brewer for his role that he has played in emergency management. He and Mark Cooey, my assistant chief, have done a lot of the strategic, tactical stuff, and they've really made this work, and Dan has played a critically important role also in putting this together. So in the police department, we're trying to limit contact as much as possible with the community to keep our staff healthy. So we really appreciate the amount of reporting by telephone, online police reporting. As you know, we've closed off the lobby, and we're just trying to work through this storm. We are fully staffed. We've got a complete patrol squads ready to go and to assist our community with any emergency needs possible. We're just trying to keep our staff healthy and help prevent the spread of that disease. So we just did a deep clean of our police station. We fogged the whole station, and we have still a couple of our employees that are under self-quarantine, and we do have at least one of our police department employees who has tested positive for COVID-19. So we do take this very serious, but the bottom line is we have full staffing patrol squads ready and available. You may not see them as much as you normally would because we've asked them for everybody's safety to try to limit any proactive activity at this time until we move forward. So one of our staff members that's currently under observation was checked out by the fire department yesterday afternoon as an example, immediately put into quarantine, and within hours had a test, a first responders priority test for COVID-19. They brought their car to the police station. The fire department within 2 hours was at the police station. They completely fogged and cleaned chemically the inside of that car to kill anything that could be in there. And I was just notified about an hour or so ago that that employee tested positive, or I'm sorry, their test came back negative. So they did not have the virus, but we were able to successfully clean things up. So we're doing the right things for the right reasons. And I think that is going to help keep us with a healthy workforce and to be able to move forward. So we're very excited about the EOC that's going to open tomorrow. And once again, thank you very much to Mayor Pina, City Manager Matthias, and the rest of the staff and the fire department.
Thank you, Chief. Mayor, that concludes the administration report.
Thank you very much. Very informative, and delighted that we have the EOC up and running. Will the clerk please read the consent calendar?
Item 1, approval of vouchers. Item 2, COVID-19 emergency draft resolution, and that concludes the consent calendar, Mayor.
Thank you. Does any council member, well, first of all, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
And who was that?
Louisa.
Okay, I have a motion made by Councilmember Bangs and a second made by Councilmember Nutting. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is there any item that a council member wishes to remove? Please state your name and so I know who you're talking about when you first, if you're going to speak.
This is Councilmember Martinelli. I would like to remove item 2.
Item 2. Okay, Councilmember Martinelli has pulled item 2. So when we vote on the consent calendar, we will be voting for the approval of vouchers, and then it will come back to item 2, the emergency draft resolution. So at this point, all those in favor of approving the consent calendar existing of item 1, approval of vouchers, I will pull you independently to get your approval, or your yay or nay, essentially. Deputy Mayor Mahoney, what say you?
Yay. Yay.
Thank you. Councilmember Martinelli.
Yay.
Councilmember Bangs.
Yay.
Councilmember Nutting.
Yay.
Councilmember Harris.
Yay.
Councilmember Buxton.
Yay.
And I also vote yes. So item 1 passes 7-0. Okay, now we come back to item 2 that was pulled by Councilmember Martinelli. It's the COVID-19 emergency draft resolution. Councilmember Martinelli, your reason for pulling?
There's a motion that I would like to make.
The floor is yours.
I would like to make a motion to direct city staff to study whether or not we have the legal authority to put a moratorium on late fees while there is a moratorium on evictions. I wanted to just put the motion to make that in ordinance as it is. I spoke with the city attorney, and he was, I think, wise in suggesting that we look into whether or not we have the authority before we actually pass a motion. I would like to have this discussed at the next council meeting on April 9th. I think it's an important motion because while people are already getting behind on their rent, some individuals, I think that while adding late fees to that is going to make it almost impossible for some people to get out of the hole that it will cause. So I think this is a step, to benefit people who, especially those who are low income or who have lost their job. So again, the motion is just to ask city staff to look into whether or not we have the authority to do a ban on late fees.
Councilmember Nutting,
Yes, Councilmember Nutting is recognized.
the federal government has already suspended all of that, so I don't see why it's necessary to spend staff time on this motion.
From what I understand, Councilmember Martinelli, from what I understand, there is no moratorium on the federal level or even state level for late fees. The city attorney, I think, might be able to clarify that. When I spoke to him, it didn't seem like that seemed to be the case. It seemed to be that there is still the ability for late fees to be accrued. There was a statewide and federal moratorium placed on evictions, but not late fees. So while people can't legally be evicted, they can continue to have late fees accrued during the time that they're not able to pay rent.
Councilmember Nutting?
Yes, Councilmember Nutting recognized.
Because I have properties that I collect rent on, I have read it, and it does lay out the fact that late fees can either be dismissed or spread out over time if the landlord so desires. So again, I absolutely do not want staff time working on this.
So Councilmember Martinelli again, so based on what you just stated, that the landlord can choose to not issue late fees, what I'm stating is that the landlord should not be able to issue late fees, and that is just going to cause a bigger issue in our, local society or local economy. I think that it isn't right that we are saying that people can't be evicted, but yet they can have late fees that are going to be accrued hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. And I think that that's great that landlords have the option of spreading out late fees or dismissing late fees, but I think that we have an obligation to stand up for our citizens and to say that those late fees should not be able to be accrued as long as there's a moratorium on evictions. I think as soon as the statewide moratorium on evictions is lifted, then the moratorium on late fees could be lifted.
Okay, Councilmember Martinelli, you've already spoken 3 times on the issue, and our rules do say twice. We've heard your angle on it. I need to hear from other council members. This is not a debate. It's just open conversation and I believe I heard Councilmember Bangs.
Yes. I
Okay.
would like to hear from our city attorney, please.
You'd like to hear from our city attorney, okay?
I guess just the point of order at this point, there's a motion, but it hasn't been seconded. So we would need a second before we proceed to further discussion.
True.
Councilmember Harris, I will second the motion.
Okay, the motion was made by Councilmember Martinelli and seconded by Councilmember Harris. Thank you for the point of order, and I appreciate that. You still have the floor, Attorney.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, what Councilmember Martinelli said was correct about he contacted me earlier today to ask about whether he could make a motion to include it with the resolution tonight. And I advised him that I was not sure of the legal authority of a city to essentially intervene in a private contract related to late fees. Several council members have pointed out, yes, there is a moratorium in King County on evictions. It does not apply to late fees. There are several cities that have passed a moratorium on late fees, such as Seattle and Burien. And the research that we have previously done on this issue seemed to indicate that a city didn't have the authority to do that. And so at this point, prior to the council considering the actual moratorium, the legal department would need to do additional research, which we didn't have the time to do today. So that's essentially the motion, I believe, is whether to direct staff to do that research and bring forward an item.
Council, I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
Is this Councilmember Bangs?
Yes.
You can continue.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe that what I have understood from cities passing a moratorium on, and by all means, I believe it's probably the most humbling thing we could do if we had any teeth to be able to enforce that as a city. And I believe Burien is unable to enforce it. I don't know how the city of Seattle is moving forward with it. So my question is, as a city wanting to pass this draft resolution, what is the impact going to be with delaying this vote to include or not even be able to include an addendum to this resolution?
The motion on the table is not an addendum to the to the motion, as to the original motion.
To add.
To add, because it's asking for staff to research this. From what I've been able to gather by the motion on the table, is that also your understanding, Attorney Tim George?
Yes, Councilmember Martinelli is requesting staff to review this matter and bring it back on April 9th for consideration, provided that that the city has the authority to do it. And then I guess at that point, we could also consider what enforcement abilities there are as well. I think that's where we're at.
Okay, what I'd like to point out to council, I'm going to jump in. I'm still ready to hear from anybody else. But I have to say, you know, the ability for the city to inject itself in a legal contract between a landlord and a tenant is very questionable at best. And I'm concerned about its enforceability, because if it's not absolutely clear that it is enforceable, then we are going to spend our attorney's time more often than just doing the research on this. They're going to have to defend this. And I think, you know, Seattle can go ahead and do what they want to do, and so can Burien if they want to write the check behind it. Our team right now is focused on the emergency management of the city. I believe that this is questionably legal at best, and being that the initial case review and so forth has not shown that this would be legal or necessarily enforceable, I don't think it's in the best interest of the city to pass or spend time working on things that are not enforceable. And that's my take on it. Are there other council members that would like to weigh in?
Councilmember Harris?
Councilmember Harris is recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Tim, Attorney George, do you have a general estimate as to the amount of time it would take for you to provide research on this?
I do not.
Not even a ballpark? 1 hour, 6 hours, 3 days?
Councilmember Harris, this would be a swag at best.
Okay.
Councilmember Buxton.
Councilmember Buxton, recognized.
So just for clarification, is this a subsidiary motion to item number 2, so that the passing of this resolution is now being dependent on whether we pass this question or not?
From what I just checked with our city attorney, no. We are discussing this issue, but it really has nothing to do with passing the emergency resolution at this time. And
so what I'm asking then is if we could pass this resolution and then finish this discussion after passing the resolution, unless we have altered the rules by how we have made these motions.
because the motion was injected, I have to deal with it before I can move to the next step.
Okay, so then my second observation in regard to this motion is that even if we were to pass it and it were to be squishily legal, if that's a term that we can use, we still then run into enforcement. And I, as a landlord, am also of the opinion that we are more good than not, and I am more on the favor of leaving it between landlords and tenants to work these things out right now. And so I think that even if we spend the time on it, then we run into the issue of obligating ourselves for enforcement, which I think is going to be an extremely difficult task. So for those two reasons, I feel it's questionable.
City Manager Mathias has asked to inject.
Yeah, I want to kind of reinforce the city attorney's statement that he doesn't know what the commitment of time or resources would be. And I think that as we've move forward, it's been very unknown as to where critical resources need to be deployed to respond to the situation we're facing. I know that Tim spent at least the last 3 days working with other staff and with other agencies and experts to establish what did the governor's proclamation mean for our building department relative to issuing permits, what's critical construction, what's not essential construction. For example, we also spent a great deal of time trying to interpret the Open Public Meetings Act, and that took an inordinate amount of time to establish what the city needed to do and what the city could not do. And so I'm a little hesitant to dedicate Tim's resources, the city attorney's office resources, to doing this review, because one of the things that's really striking about our city is that we're relatively small. We're doing a great job with our fire and police and responding as we are able to events associated with the virus. And I'm hesitant to redirect resources into something that may or may not prove as a viable option for us.
Thank you. Any other councilmember?
Councilmember Nutting?
Councilmember Buxton.
Okay, I'll recognize Councilmember Nutting, then Councilmember Buxton.
I just have to say, I absolutely agree with Councilmember Buxton, and I agree with City Manager Mathias. And here are the numbers: 85,202 cases of coronavirus in the United States. We have now surpassed China. China, the epicenter of this problem. 16,991 new cases in the last 24 hours. This is not to deal with tenants, homeowners, or anything. It's to deal with the society. To spend staff time looking into this when it's a federal issue is asinine when everything else is going on. I have contacted my tenants and have made concessions with them because I have a heart. If anything happens with them, it is a contract between me and them. I will not support anything other than just passing this the way it is, and we need to move forward.
Okay, Councilmember Nutting, you've spoken 3 times, as has Councilmember Martinelli. Councilmember Buxton, this would be your second time, I think.
I think I'm good, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay.
I think moving forward is good.
Okay, and is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
Councilmember Harris?
Councilmember Harris is recognized.
So, yeah, I'll just say I think it's worth taking the time to do it, and that's it.
Okay. At this point, I will ask for your vote on the motion to dedicate staff time to research whether or not a fee waiver is workable within the city of Des Moines during the period of this emergency. And did I say that correctly? Or I'll look to our attorney to restate the motion as he understands it.
The motion was to research the issue and bring it back on the April 9th agenda.
Okay. So those in favor of researching the motion and bringing it back on April 9th, they would vote in the affirmative. Those against this would vote in the negative. Councilmember Nutting, what say you?
Nay. Jay Inslee's laid it out.
Councilmember Bangs, what say you?
Nay.
Councilmember Harris? Let's see. Say again, please.
Yes.
Councilmember Harris voted in the affirmative. That's a yes. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Buxton.
Nay.
Thank you. Councilmember Mahoney. Deputy Mayor Mahoney, I'm sorry.
Nay.
Councilmember Martinelli.
Yes.
Thank you. And I will vote no. The motion fails, 5-2. I will now take us forward to the COVID-19 emergency draft resolution. The motion is to approve the draft resolution 20-020, accepting findings of fact and ratifying and confirming the city manager's proclamation of emergency on March 5th, 2020 in the city of Des Moines due to the novel coronavirus disease. And I will make the motion to move this forward. Is there a second?
Second, Jeremy Nutting.
Okay, motion was made by myself, seconded by Councilmember Nutting. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Deputy Mayor Mahoney, what say you?
Yay.
Deputy Mayor says yes.
Okay.
Councilmember Martinelli, what say you?
Yay, and thanks to the city manager and staff for all the work they're doing.
Thank you. Councilmember Martinelli says yes. Councilmember Bangs, what say you? Is that yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Nutting, what say you?
Yay.
Yes, thank you. Councilmember Harris.
Yay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Harris, I couldn't hear you. Can you repeat that?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Okay, your signal's just a little weak on my end. Thank you. Councilmember Buxton, what say you?
Yay.
And I too say yay. This passes 7-0. Okay. At this point, we are at the end of our meeting. Our next meeting is scheduled for April 9th, and we will be continuing to work to bring the format forward and look at what we can do with new technologies. I appreciate everybody's patience through this difficult time. I want to extend very sincere gratitude, as was expressed by the council in their, just a few seconds ago in their vote. Michael, Chief Pennington, and our chief, I just want to say, you guys are doing an outstanding job. And our community is much, much better because we have the three of you leading our emergency management. Chief Thomas, the partnership, when you came to the city, the partnership that you formed with our South King Fire and Rescue and so forth makes me feel like, and I know that there are definitely differences between the red and the blue, but for those of you who can't see that, they just bumped elbows. But you guys are working as a team, and I continually am humbled by the work that goes out there. I know Chief Pennington, your folks are running in with the appropriate gear to make sure that other first responders can be safe and protected as long as it is appropriate in that situation. I can also say, Chief Thomas, on the streets, I see your men and women, they are very active and they are taking care of a lot of things. These difficult times do bring out some interesting behavior, and your team is working amazingly well. And I will look back at our city manager, Matthias, and the fabulous team that we have here. And I also want to express my gratitude to the council. I know this is difficult, and this is an extremely unusual way for us to function. I too am, social distancing, staying at home, working from home, doing everything I can while trying to take care of family members and things like that. And I know this is not easy. but we need to, stay the course. Let's beat this thing and let's get back to doing other business. So anyway, I want to thank everybody for their attention tonight and we will be in touch. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Deputy Mayor Mahoney.
Okay, I first heard the motion from Councilmember Bang, seconded by Deputy Mayor Mahoney. All those in favor, please say aye. If you're real loud, I'm just gonna count that as good.
Aye.
I think we got everybody. I didn't hear any nays. All right, take care of yourself, stay safe. We are adjourned.
Aye.